Well, hey folks, Real Honesty with John Ritland's Unpopular Wrestling Opinion, episode 15, where I'm going to talk about Rob Van Dam. No, I'm not going to try to do the spin kick that he did, and especially in his ECW run, because I would either kick myself in the head somehow, or I would knock myself out and probably not wake up until sometime tomorrow, if not, 3-4 days after that, because I'm not athletic at all. RVD is a freakish athlete, and I also want to take this opportunity to say that I respect how he's always stood up for what he believes in, done his career the way he wanted to, walked to the beat of his own drum, all those cliches, and didn't always conform to what WWE wanted him to do. And he left big money because he wanted a better quality of life in 2007, and that's great. And if you're a fan of Rob Van Dam, I'm certainly not here to knock you guys. I'm not here to knock any fan of Rob Van Dam. I know that there are plenty of people that love Rob Van Dam, that think that he's one of the best wrestlers ever. I'm here to say that, in my opinion, Rob Van Dam is not one of the best wrestlers ever. He is a freakish athlete. He hits some great high spots. And that's it. His promos were never great. They were better in ECW because he was allowed to be more of himself. He was mainly allowed to, in WWE to be, Mr. Dude, whatever, and cool. They made him very robotic and very scripted, and that wasn't really good. RVD, very passionate about what he believes in. That's great, including smoking weed. That's fine. But that's kind of part of the reason why I'm going to do this episode here. I've never been the biggest Rob Van Dam fan because I feel that if you see one of his matches, you've seen them all. Especially after his ECW run. Now, his ECW run, some of the matches he had were absolutely tremendous. His teaming up with Sabu, his feuding with Sabu. His matches with Jerry Lynn, to me, I feel that his best rivalry ever was against Jerry Lynn. The matches they had in 99 were tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn, two premier athletes. Jerry Lynn was a better worker, and I will fight anyone that disagrees. Kidding, won't fight you guys. If you guys disagree, that's fine. Rob Van Dam hit some great high spots, and could pull out some impressive maneuvers. The Van Terminator, the Van Daminator, the 5-star frog splash, and using chairs. Lots of chairs, clearly learning from Sabu. And yes, I will have an unpopular opinion on Sabu at some point, because, I got a lot to say about him, too. This is by no means saying that Rob Van Dam didn't earn what he had in wrestling. But the guy could have had a whole lot more. Yeah, you have his ECW run, stuff like that. His WCW run maybe wasn't the greatest when he was Robbie V, but he earned a good amount of notoriety and got into ECW shortly after and was pretty much the last big star they had, really, maybe besides Tommy Dreamer. Because you couldn't really rely on Sandman to deliver good performance. RVD would always deliver the best performance he could. He went all out, and those matches with him and Jerry Lynn, I could probably watch until the day I die, because they are very damn good matches. I was never the biggest fan of ECW, but I like those matches. And he did have other good matches. He made the TV title in ECW extremely relevant. Almost held the damn thing for 2 years. Had it not been for a freak accident and an ankle injury, he would have held it for 2 years. He might have held it till the damn company went under, which would have been closer to 3 years. It would have been I think 3 months shy of 3 years, because they closed down. They closed down shortly after Guilty as Charged 2001. So his ECW run was pretty damn good. And his WWE run, he was super over. The crowd fucking loved the guy. Because he marched to the beat of his own drum. He was just cool. He did have that cool factor about him. But I never popped for a lot of RVD matches outside of the ones maybe he had with Sabu, the teaming with Sabu, and his matches with Jerry Lynn. Could he pull out some impressive moves? Yes. He pulled out an impressive 5-star frog splash in the first ever Elimination Chamber, crushing Triple H's throat. Accidentally, wasn't on purpose. But yes, he was held down in that feud with Triple H a little bit earlier in the year, where he probably should have been the world champion. And maybe at that time he should have been. But then, in 2006, you find out why he wasn't the world champion. Because they made him WWE champion. They made him Mr. Money in the Bank. And that's pretty much where a lot of this focus is going to be. Now, he did have a good feud with Eddie Guerrero in 2002. And I'm going to bounce around a little bit on this. He had a good run in the Invasion angle. He maybe should have been feuding with Austin. It would have been money if he had feuded with Austin back then. And instead of being just pretty much made, a whipping boy for him. because RVD was over. He was one of the few guys in the entire Invasion angle that was over, and that's nothing against the athletes that they had. They had Lance Storm, who's a premier worker, DDP, Booker T. Buried the fuck out of DDP for no goddamn reason. Well, it was a stupid reason, but RVD was one of the few guys after the Invasion angle that was super, super pushed. And yeah, once it got to 2006, he had a knee injury at the end of 04, beginning of 05, and wasn't it was a torn meniscus and I believe other torn ligaments, and was out for like a year. He did have a brief bump that he took at ECW One Night Stand 05. But when he was brought back, okay, big push, won Money in the Bank very soon after he came back, and had a pretty big run. He faced Shelton Benjamin, I believe, at Backlash 2006, announced that he was going to cash in on John Cena, and they were going to do an ECW One Night Stand 06. Perfect storm of opportunity and everything, where RVD got this, massive, massive push. Yeah, there were all the kinds of shenanigans because it was ECW. Edge had speared Cena through a table, and the crowd was chanting, "Thank you, Edge." Because Edge and Cena were in the midst of a big, big feud. I mean, they'd kind of cooled that off for a little bit, but it was the feud of 2006 in WWE, in my personal opinion. But RVD, 5-star frog splash. The referee had been knocked down. Heyman came down as the ref because they do different things in ECW. 1, 2, 3. RVD is the ECW and the WWE champion. And that was June 12th, 2006. And by the beginning of July, it went all up in smoke. Pun very much intended. Now, RVD has always been an advocate for smoking weed. Whatever. If that's how you get down, if it saves you, if cannabis saves you, and you use it right, and you're not just using it as an excuse. If it really helps you, great. I'm anti-drug myself. I will not do drugs unless there comes a time where I need some form of medication to survive. And, hopefully my health keeps going, even despite, the amount of ranting I do, and the fact that sometimes I get a little bit amped up and a little dizzy, need to cool that down. He's always been an advocate for weed. It's pretty damn obvious, even watching, RVD, no one gets higher than RVD. Duh. I mean, it's pretty obvious what they were doing. And in ECW and WWE, he wasn't the only wrestler that was an advocate for smoking weed. MVP, I believe, also was, if I recall correctly. I'm not trying to quote anybody indirectly. Val Venus. I believe Val Venus even owns his own weed store, which, good for him. If it gets him money, that's great. But Rob Van Dam was given the rocket, and I mean really given the rocket, because before, they weren't sure. I wasn't sure if he was going to come back from that knee injury, all the bumps and bruises and everything. He did, and he got the rocket. That was the perfect storm for him to be launched as a WWE champion. He probably would have only held it for about a month and a half, but he was going to be the figurehead, the main guy in ECW, and probably be the ECW champion for a number of months. It was set up that way. And then, him and Sabu got busted with, I believe, weed and a bunch of pills. I would recommend looking up the case, because I don't remember every bit of paraphernalia they had. But RVD was WWE champion. Now, Sabu already wasn't going to be... I wasn't surprised Sabu did. I wasn't surprised Rob did either, but it's just... You're looking like... Life on the road's got to be tough. Okay, if marijuana helps, all right. I don't think marijuana shouldn't... Even back then, should have been a charge. It should have been like something against a drug policy if used right. But it was part of the drug policy. Rob knew that. Rob got busted. And he was representing the company as the WWE champion. Whether he was the guy or not, because the world title was actually seen as a little bit bigger, even with Ray being the world champion, Rob wasn't in the main event of like Vengeance 2006, the lone match that he had as a WWE champion, where he beat Edge. And it was a good match. Weird pay-per-view, but a good match. But then, right after that, they both get busted. Rob was the guy. He was going to be the guy. Like, they were deciding to go with him. And I mean, even if it was going to be a short WWE title reign, and maybe he'd be in the mix with that, he's also going to be the ECW champion. They had everything, all their eggs in one basket with the guy, and the guy screwed up. And that's part of the reason why, even though I respect what he does, and respect the fact that he stands up for what he believes in, that's part of the reason why, with RVD, I'm always going to think he was given an opportunity that he really should have never been given. To be ECW champion, sure, okay. But to be WWE champion, it was one of the best cash-ins ever, and it was a great match. But everything went up in a puff of smoke. Rob just simply, he simply slapped the company in the face, in my opinion. You can argue whether weed should have been, part of the drug policy or not, or the wellness policy, and whether that should have been the case. But Rob doing that, it was bad. It was really, really bad. Now, did I lose all respect for him? I gotta admit I lost some respect for him. Because if he wasn't a champion, I wouldn't have cared. But representing the company and doing that, it just shows, to me, a lack of respect. Was he the only guy just smoking weed or having pills on the road, even with the wellness policy? No, not at all. And I'm not here to say that. Sure, had he not been busted, we might not ever had that conversation. But he was, and it was a bad look. Bad look for him, bad look for the company. So he lost the title a whole lot quicker, the WWE title. We lost the WWE title like not even a month after. I think it was on a Raw. I think it was on the July 3rd edition of Raw. And then he lost the ECW title to the Big Show, of all people, on the very next night, which was an ECW show on July 4th, 2006. And then Rob was suspended. He's brought back. He was used here and there. And of course, they weren't going to give him, the Rocket again. He was going to have, moments, but they weren't going to, push him in the main event. Then when his contract came up for renewal, he decided he was going to leave. Now, part of it had to do probably with the company using him. I believe at the time, his wife at the time was sick, had cancer, or had been diagnosed with some disease. I think it was cancer. So he wanted to take some time off. And they were kind of aggressively trying to keep him strong, like, hey, you stay, we'll keep you strong. And he didn't want to do that. He had his reasons for leaving. I respect him for leaving and leaving money on the table. But I lost respect for the fact that he did what he did. And yeah, he was in TNA, and he was just in TNA pretty much for a paycheck. As were a lot of wrestlers. He's certainly not the only one. But I never really cared for his TNA run because, his Impact Wrestling run. But it was TNA at the time, because it was 2010 to 2013. Through various forms, because he had limited dates on his contracts. He was given the TNA Championship, beating AJ Styles, just almost running through him on an episode of Impact right after Lockdown 2010, and then was not really used all that well. Again, limited dates, but also the fact that Rob, I don't know, he just never seemed motivated. He never seemed motivated there. And he was in WWE, and he had his moment, but when they decided to have him return in 2013, I didn't care. I mean, okay, good. Rob Van Dam's coming back. He had good showings. He had a good showing in that ladder match. He had good showings otherwise. I think he faced Dean Ambrose for the U.S. title at one point. He had moments where he was doing well. But I just didn't care. To me, it just wasn't interesting watching Rob Van Dam anymore. Because as freakishly athletic as a guy is, and he is, he's tremendously talented. Still is on the various indie videos that I've been able to see, or where he's at indie promotions. Because he can't work in WWE. I think he's got some cornea issue or some issue with his eye where it's a medical condition and he can't pass the tests that they have. Okay. He's also in his mid-40s. I don't think they really need to bring back, RVD in his mid-40s. I just don't think they do. They don't need him. He doesn't need them. They don't need him. But RVD is always going to be one of those to me. He's good, had flashes of greatness, but was never the greatest superstar. I didn't put him in my top 50 favorite superstars of all time because after his ECW run, and even in his ECW run, quite frankly, but after his ECW run, watered down or not, I just lost interest in him. Rob is always going to be one of the better high spot guys and was innovative and could pull off some innovative moves. But his matches got super repetitious to me. Super repetitious. Was he still over? Yes. If they could find a way to bring him back to WWE for one shot and one opportunity to seize the moment, no, not going to go into an 8-mile rant here. If he had a one-off appearance in the Rumble next year, or a one-off appearance at Mania, if they could somehow find a way to have that happen, sure, he'd probably get a thunderous pop. Because he's still over. He made an impact on everybody. And he was a big superstar. But I never saw it with him being one of the best of all time. I just never did. I know that there are fans that like him, and that's great. And if you're a fan of Rob Van Dam and you're watching this, I do not discount you guys at all. We all like we all have our favorites and least favorites. Rob was just never one of my favorites. As much as I respected his ability in the ring, he was never a great storyteller. He was just high spot, high spot, high spot. Great athlete, but just somebody that I was always like, he slapped WWE in the face. Whether you guys agree with the wellness policy or not, it was stupid for him to do that stuff. And the whole thing with him being champion should have never happened. In retrospect, should have never happened because it was really, really fucking bad. Is there selective enforcement on the wellness policy? Yes, that's another opinion for another day. I just never saw Rob as, will he be in the Hall of Fame? Maybe. He was super over, but it's like, I wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame. Why? There are certain people, by the way, in the Hall of Fame right now, celebrity wing and otherwise, I would have not put in the Hall of Fame. But whatever, hey. If you guys like Rob Van Dam, that's tremendous. I just gotta be honest, I never really cared for him as much as everybody else did. That's why I did this unpopular opinion. But anyway, that's what I gotta say. Agree, disagree with what I said. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Weird link in the description. If I'm real honest with John Mifflin, and I will see you soon.